described, except that it will be progressive. I really don't like we say that. When something switch from one value to another in just 1 second. So just to make it progressive and not have this 4-year hard cap. All the other solution is to do a long token sale with some time, which is about 1 year, and both are to protect the people who will buy the token sale.
Right.
Because in the first case, where backers can get back their money, if the project team is not delivering, they will run out of funds, so they have all the incentive to continue to deliver. And in the second model, if the project team is not doing what it's supposed to do, well, in the next round of the sale, they won't have any buyers. So I think both of these models can protect the backers and also prevent one entity to controlling a high part of the token.
Get rid of the tokens. Yeah, and just for the sake of the live streaming right now, so my name is Maximus Milov. I'm one of the founders of Winding Tree. It's a decentralized travel distribution platform, and we have Federico S here and Clement Lesaege that work on crowd jury, or is it crowd jury or
it's Claro. Protocol is called Claro. Yeah.
So
okay.
Crowd jury is basically the idea of drawing people at random to solve disputes. And Claros in one particular implementation is using a token as chances of being run at random, and with token incentive to arbitrate in a coherent manner.
Right. So basically, I'm going to explain it on an example. Let's say I buy a hotel stay in Prague for a few nights on the Winding Tree platform using the LIFT token. Therefore, that transaction is irreversible, right? So I cannot just take my call a bank and reverse that transaction, right? But I show up at the hotel and I see that that hotel is not there at all. Like it was some person that was advertising completely different address. So basically it was a scam. And actually at Winding Tree, we do have a completely automated check for that. So maybe it's a bad example, but let's say the service wasn't rendered. You show up at the hotel, but the service wasn't rendered to your expectations, right? So the hotel advertised that it's 5 stars, and you show up and the roof is leaking, there's maturity, all that stuff. What do you do? How do you where do you call? There is no bank, there is no nothing, there is no authority that could help you here. And again, if we introduce an authority here, the whole principle of decentralization just goes to hell, right? It's not a decentralized system now. So how do we introduce this arbiter that would decide, that would help us in a completely decentralized manner to resolve the situation? That is, in this particular case, to perhaps refund that person who bought that hotel stay fully, or at least partially, right? And Crowd Jury is exactly that project that would help this kind of situations. Am I describing it correctly?
Yeah. So on the first problematic you mentioned is that you already paid the person. So no, you should not pay someone before you get the service delivered.
Right.
So, but if you don't pay, you get the other possibility of delivering some service and having the person and not paying you at the end. So for that, you pay a smart contract. And this smart contract, if every party is happy with how this contract and transaction has been, they can just sign and say, okay, I'm happy, the contract executed perfectly, and everyone gets paid. Or in case of an hotel stay, I guess you also ask the guests to have some deposit in case they break part of the hotel. Generally, they do that in hotel by asking you a credit card, even if you pay by cash, or asking you extensive ID identification to be able to sue you if you break part of the hotel. So both parties put the money in a smart contract. If everything goes right, nothing to do, the smart contract will give the money, give the deposit back, and pay the hostel. But in case there is a dispute, which can either be the guest not happy with the hostel, or the hostel saying that the guest has broken something, and the guest has to pay for it, you get to have to arbitrate this. And what is really interesting there is that the funds are already logged in the smart contract. So once you have the arbitration, you have no problem in practice, while you will have with a classical legal system or other kind of arbitration or mediation online, where you have no possibility to execute the ruling. So this will call payrolls, and we will have a juror which are drawn at random in a proportion of the token activated in this particular kind of dispute. So for example, in the hostel, it will be you will have I guess some kind of court, and in this building court you would have a sub court which will be an hostel court, and jurors who think that they are great at solving a dispute for hostel, they will activate their token in this hostel court and have chances of being drawn. So this will go juror. When jurors are drawn, they get paid an arbitration fee for that, which can be paid by the smart contract, and the smart contract can even at the end only take the fee from the losing party in order to not penalize someone with legal fee when they have done nothing wrong. And the juror will look at the evidence of both parties, of the hostel, of the guest, and at the end of the procedure, they will vote to in favor of one or another party. Well, in case of this hostel, it could be like three different kind of result. The result could be that the guest has to pay some damage for the hotel in the deposit, or that the guest has to pay nothing because the hotel is not compliant to what was advertised, or it can be like a tie where the guest just have to pay, but no damage have to be paid.
Right.
And the jurors, they have to vote coherently, because if jurors voting coherently, for example, you have 7 jurors, 6 of them say that the guests have to pay for damages, and one say no, he does not have to pay damages, and the hostel was not corresponding to the description, and the hostel have to reimburse him instead. The one who says that will be considered incoherent compared to the other juror, and so he will lose some part of the token to the other jurors. That means that if you think that something is the right call to do, and you think that the other will also think that, because they have to be coherent, that's an infinite recursion when you have to be honest rolling, as long as you think that the other think, that the other think, that the other think, that the other are also honest. So that's why jurors are incentivized in giving honest ruling, even if they can be anonymous and can't suffer any legal action of the way they vote. Of course, you can have an attack with, like, the hotel bribing some juror. And to avoid that, we have an appeal mechanism when we can increase the amount of juror. Of course, when you pay also increasing arbitration fee, because you use more time of juror. And as long as the juror fee is smaller than the bribe you have to pay, which is quite a reasonable expectation, because generally you want to be paid more money to do something dishonest compared to do something honest. You will have at some point the hotel not being able to cope with the bribing fee, and so the bribe won't exceed finally. So even if in most cases we won't have appeal, just the fact that there is appeal is a good mechanism against bribe of either parties. And it's decentralized because the tokens are decentralized, and we don't have one entity holding the majority of the token. Because if we had one entity holding the majority of the token, parties will know that at the end, when we appeal at some time, we have like appealed and everyone is drawn in the dispute. And since we have one party which has more than half of the token, that's this only party who decision will count. So that's why we need to have a decentralized mechanism to make the system resilient to do this kind of attack, and also to get a lower arbitration fee as you would have with centralized system.
So, but what is the biggest challenge to design a completely decentralized token economy? I would say in our case, the biggest challenge is to design the incentives for all kinds of different parties on the network in such a way so that no one loses interest in participating in the network, right? And in your case, it's jurors, it's clients of that network. Again, as you're saying, is if the arbitration fee is very, very high, I have no interest in putting my case on using your project because the cost is just too high, right? But again, if the cost is too low, as a juror, I don't care. I'm not making enough money. So I think for all the decentralized protocols, or for many of them, that is, I think that is a very interesting challenge. But what about we were discussing right before we went live? We were discussing the different token models, and you've touched a little bit of that. But can you talk a little bit about the token model, how you structure that? You mentioned that the sale is going to run over a period of 1 year.
Yeah, so we have for now two main competing choice. So the one you mentioned is having a token sale in 1 year, which is basically like it will be like 12 token sale, 1 token sale each month, and at the end of each month, you split the token which are reserved for this month proportionally to the contribution of every backer. All the other mechanism will be a mechanism where you do one unique token sale, but the project team does not get the what was raised in this token sale.
Right.
So everything is locked into a smart contract.
Right.
And for example, just imagine it's on 10 months unlocking period. At the end of the first month, we have 10% which are unlocked. So we get 10% of what was raised, which is unlocked and can be used by the team. And there is also a cancellation mechanism where you can just give your token back and get back the amount of Ether you put in the first place, which minus the percentage which was already unlocked. So for example, if you do it just at the end of the token sale, you get everything back. But if you do it 1 month after, you get 90% back, or if you do it 5 months after, just half of it. Right. That's a way to make sure that the team is making great progress, right, to the goal. Otherwise, the backers will think that the project is worthless and want their Ether back instead of the tokens.
Yeah, I was just meeting with a few investors and crypto people in Silicon Valley, and it's fascinating that that's what they're saying, and they're running Crypto Founders Group. I think it's on Facebook. I think you should be able to look them up. And they're saying that all those different projects are coming up with all those different ideas, different token sale schemes, and also in terms of incorporation, legal stuff, the constituency where they incorporate. Every project is unique. There are no best practices right now. There are a few kind of obvious things that a lot of companies have done. A lot of companies went to Switzerland. A bunch of companies went to Singapore. I've heard about a few companies that are incorporated in Hong Kong. So what can you disclose? What is your best practice in your project?
Let me comment something about the thing about how an application of Kleros, especially in the context of crowd sales.
Right.
So when in the traditional venture capital model, so you have an agreement with the venture capitalist, and they start to release funds as long as you reach some milestone, right? how to do this in a decentralized model where you have like millions or thousands of people like in different places. Imagine if you could like, put all the money of the backers into this smart contract, and Kleros would decide if the milestones were reached and would release funds as these milestones are reached. This gives you a more transparent way to do this decision, and you keep the decentralization of the system.
Right. That is a very interesting idea, and so, but also some of the implications of that design, by the way, is the governance of the protocol itself, right? Because again, if you have immutable smart contracts, you have to be able to evolve that software in a completely decentralized way. Can Kleros be used for that as well?
I would say that at a very fundamental level, like that is the main application of Kleros. So imagine a world like ruled by smart contracts that they are signed like 3 years ago in a different context. So no contract can be complete at the moment it's signed, because we don't know, the context evolves, life is dynamic. So what happens when things evolve in some way that makes the strict fulfillment of contract by code unreasonable or unfair? So you don't have a court that is going to make a decision on not to comply with the contract. So the Greek had this concept called epikeia, that they said when the contract or the obeying the law becomes unreasonable because of changing context, you are no longer obliged to do that, right? So Kleros can create a mechanism to like overrule smart contracts when they have become not reasonable to comply in a decentralized way. So you don't put again a single point of failure into the system.
Right.
Like I can imagine in the future that all smart contracts by default will have Kleros or some other mechanism for like escape hatch for when compliance can't be done. So this is why it is very important, because it's going to be a very fundamental piece of infrastructure for a world ruled by smart contracts.
Yep, and that's exactly what I said on Twitter. I cannot wait for that project to come to fruition, because this is a very critical piece of infrastructure, and that's something that is missing right now. I mean, a lot of people talk about identity, and of course, identity will be a huge part of what you're doing as a prerequisite. But yeah, some sort of arbitrage in a decentralized way is going to be a killer app. And again, it can be applied in all kinds of different areas of human life. Built on what?
No, at the identity, we don't assume that we have some identity problem solved. That's why we use tokens instead of identities, because if we had identities, we could just draw everyone at random, and if we have some really particularly dishonest arbitrator, we could remove them.
Yeah.
Since the identity problem is not solved, that's why we have to resort to token as right to be done as random and not just individuality.
Just out of curiosity, what do you think about Civic? What do you think about Uport, about some other companies that are selling that?
So we'll look a little bit about Uport, but I don't really know if it will work. Just like, let's see, and if it works, we may take that into consideration, but not to make so many speculation on this kind of project, because they're not only technical. Okay, we can speculate in scalability of Ethereum and stuff like that, because we have concrete paper which explaining how to do this with proof of stake, with sharding, with also plasma. So yeah, we can speculate that we will have the people solving those scalability and technical issues, but the more social one, I think it's highly risky to speculate that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, my conviction is that that protocol for identity has to be completely decentralized. And in the case of all those companies that we've mentioned, they are almost fully centralized. Civic having a for-profit company to govern all of that, their token having, I still cannot wrap my head around why the token exists there, and I was trying to read all the articles about that, and so far it seems that the token is not related to their iPhone app or Android app at all. And again, their token sale completed within a few days or a few hours, but it was never a public sale. They raised money from a limited number of people in Silicon Valley. That's centralization of power right there. Yeah, so it's interesting. So yeah, I think all those things should be completely decentralized, and that is the key. And that protocol, you're absolutely right, is not there. We haven't solved identity.
So speaking about token and token utility, can you describe how the token of the winding tree will be useful in the project?
Right. So this is one of the hardest parts, and hopefully we'll have the ability using Claritarion or something else as a governance platform, be it, I don't know, direct democracy, liquid democracy, or maybe a prediction market used as a governance mechanism. That's maybe, hopefully that's something that will be evolving as well. But the idea is to have our token as a payment, as a carrier of value on the platform. Why do we need to do that? Because we want proof that the same token will be used on the governance platform as well, but we want to have proof that if you have a token, that you are a valid member of the marketplace. So therefore, if you're a company, let's say it's a big airline, and you transact a lot, therefore you have a lot of token supply just in your coffins, just in case, right? So therefore, you have proof on the marketplace that you have a certain market share on the marketplace. So in the sense, the token acts as that proof, right? And the only problem, and it's a very, very hard problem that we're researching very, very heavily right now, is the volatility of the token. Because if the token is used as a form of payment on the platform and it's very volatile, then it could become problematic for companies to use it today. Nonetheless, Bitcoin and Ether is used as a form of payment in everywhere today. We're paying our lawyers in Ether, we're paying our marketing company in Ether, we're paying ourselves in Ether today. So that doesn't stop us, even if the token is very, very volatile. And maybe the volatility of the token is not a bug, but a feature. Because token has to be volatile, or currencies, by definition, there are no currencies out there that are completely static. The dollar, in regards to euro, goes up and down all the time, and there are other fiat currencies out there that are more volatile than some cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, for example. So that's a big problem in our case. But on your platform, the token that is used to prove that you have the right to be a juror when you activate the token. Is it used as a form of currency as well? Like how do those people get paid?
No, so it's not used as a currency. You pay in Ether.
Okay.
For basically, you can pay whatever you want, because you can just directly make a transaction to a decentralized exchange. So the currency in which you pay, I would say that it's irrelevant. So the token are used as an anti-CBIT mechanism and as an economic incentive mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
So an mechanism, because if we have no token, that would mean that we would have to draw everyone with equal chance, and we could just have a guy making 1,000 of fake accounts to be sure that he's always drawn, especially in his own dispute, and always arbitrated in his own favor. So that's why we need a token to act as an anti-speed mechanism for this kind of attack.
Right.
And the second one is the fact that parties, if they don't have tokens, they don't have any incentive to rule correctly. They could just let a computer program make a random ruling and still be paid the arbitration fee. So that's why we use a token and token loss and token gain to basically punish arbitrators which are incoherent compared to the other. So the punishment does not need to be harsh. Sometimes, even if you're honest, you may be incoherent. but overall you will gain and lose about the same amount of token. But if you're a dishonest arbitrator, you will be mostly incoherent and lose token over time, and first lose something which is valuable, because tokens are valuable because they are right to be not random, and when you're drawn, you pay the arbitration fee. And also because you will have less token and so less chances of being redrawn, and so you will have less potential of harming the system. So that's the two uses of the token in Kleros.
Just one last comment, and I have to go then. But let's remember that there has to be a proposition of value and a business model for any protocol, right? This has to solve problems of like the guys who are going to arbitration, the companies, or like in your case, the airlines or the users or something. Like all the token structure is only the way to do it in a decentralized way because that adds value to the solution. But if some centralized solution could do this like better than us or than 1 in 3, so people will use the centralized solution.
Yeah.
Because it solves the problem. It's always very nice to have in mind that we need to also take sustainable practices for really solving people's problems.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line here between short-term and long-term goals, but you're absolutely right. That's something that a lot of blockchain-based projects have as a challenge today. But hey guys, I know we're running out of time, so I would like to thank you. I think we missed, didn't talk about how Claritarian as a project is governed. Maybe Claritarian will be governed by Claritarian itself, using some clever recursive loop mechanism. I don't know, but I think that's something that's one of the most interesting topics out there today, and that's something that people in
we can speak a bit about this. By the way, the name is Kleros. We changed it.
Got it.
Claritarian was too long and hard for some people to pronounce. So we will have liquid voting system to govern the changes of Kleros. So in liquid vote, that's basically like direct vote, except you can also choose someone who your vote will be transferred to in case you don't vote. So on all the proposal, you already have the choice to vote as in a direct democracy system. But if you don't want to, mostly because you're not interested, because you don't have time, you can delegate to someone who will vote at your place, and the delegation is transitive. So you can delegate to A, which will delegate to B, which will delegate to C. And at the end, if C is the only one voting, he will vote to my vote, and also A and B, and of course himself C votes.
Right. Yeah, so liquid democracy is one of the options. And on our end, the governance part is not defined yet. We are in the research phase, but that's something perhaps that we should talk about next time and prepare maybe a separate screencast about that. But Clement, thank you very much for your time. I need to jump on another call as well, but we'll definitely catch up next time and discuss all the things that we haven't discussed today.
Okay, great.
Take care.
Again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.